Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Institute for Personal Development, where total consciousness is the new frontier. Kriya Yoga is the union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices that initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of the Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing okay today. How about you?
I'm doing great on this beautiful Monday rainy morning. And I want to thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Today on the Voice of Yoga, we'll talk about the fourth stage of Kriya Yoga Pranayama, control of prana. Pranayama is the science of prana, the life force, and its correlation to the thinking process. There is a direct relationship between life-sustaining force number 1, thought, and life-sustaining force number 2, breath. Through the application of various breathing and thinking exercises, we develop the control of prana, the life force. Listen as we explain how we think is what we become. So join our spiritual advance, get the light in your soul. So Swami, let's talk about, first of all, for somebody who's new to yoga, how would you describe prana? What is it?
Well, prana is the life force. It's the creating force of the universe. It's how everything comes into form. And thinking is to prana as breathing is to air, as drinking is to water, as eating is to food. That thought really is our number one life-sustaining force. The French philosopher Descartes, he says, I think, therefore I am. He's 100% right. And also then there's Bertrand Russell, who says, I am, therefore I think, which is almost a different way of saying the same thing. But thought is your number one life-sustaining force, and energy or prana follows thought. And that's why the formula that we work with is how we think is what we become. That energy follows mind. That the mind is really the creative principle of our reality. And a big part of the concept of pranayama, controlling prana, is the relationship between life-sustaining force number 1, thought, and life-sustaining force number 2, breath. Because one of the things that I've always recognized is you're trying to connect to prana, the life force, which is invisible and intangible. And your number 2 life-sustaining force, breath, air, is invisible but tangible. So we can actually hold our breath and put ourselves in a real life-threatening situation. So it does have tangibility. So it kind of gives you a handle or a way of somehow recognizing or pointing you in the right direction of something that's invisible and intangible. And that relationship, life-sustaining force number 1 and life-sustaining force number 2, is very expandable. I mean, there's a lot you can learn to do with that. But one of the things I've often noticed is a lot of times people think pranayama is control of breath. That can be misleading because you can control your breathing, you can control your rate of breathing, but if you don't change your thoughts, then of course you're missing a big part of how to shape your reality.
We used to have this expression in the martial art world, because we taught a Chinese martial art, and it's called Yi moves Qi. Yi is the Chinese word for mind. And so mind moves Qi, or mind moves energy. So I think what you're saying is you have to make that distinguish between air prana, they are not the same thing. We used to say, like, chi rides on your breath, is what we used to say in the martial art world.
Yeah, no, that's an important thing, like you said, that prana follows thought, mind. And, your breath is, air goes into your lungs. I mean, you can track it, you can follow it, and then, of course, it's dispensed through the rest of the body, through your circulatory system. But the movement of prana, the life force, is different, and it's not limited to your respiratory system and your circulatory system. You can move prana through the nadi, channels, meridians that they call in the martial arts. And that's all done with the workings of the mind, changing thought patterns, changing images, using your thoughts to shape your reality. And understanding that the relationship between life-sustaining force number 1 and life-sustaining force number 2 is that your rate of breath equals your rate of thought. It's fundamental, it's key. But it doesn't control the content of your thought. That you still have to work with mental imagery in order to get the desired outcome that you're looking for. And of course, the way that it works is thought is an energy. It's capable of producing effects, but it's all measurable based on the amount of strength you emit it with. So it's belief that gives thought the power of intention. So a big part of pranayama is being able to establish your sense of well-being based on the availability of your next breath, which will give you the confidence so that you can start to emit your thoughts with the power of intention, so that now you can emit a thought with belief as opposed to just changing a thought, not believing that you're good enough, not feeling connected to something that's pure, powerful, and sacred, and admitting the same thought with the burden of doubt, which causes it then to dribble off.
So if somebody were to start up a practice of pranayama exercises, so it's not just holding the breath for a certain amount of seconds and inhaling, exhaling, and holding that breath, you're saying they have to do these exercises with an actual intention of thought to really have any type of beneficial purpose out of that kind of work.
Well, I'm not saying that to get any kind of beneficial work. I mean, because there's the placebo effect to anything. But pranayama is more of a science. That when you're doing breathing exercises, they have very specific intention. And it's based on working with energy levels in your body and using breath patterns in order to affect energy levels in your body. And also, breath is connected to both your voluntary and your involuntary nervous system. So it kind of becomes a connection between left brain and right brain. So the science of pranayama is very exact. And so some of the principles that you could learn to employ is just simple things like breath patterns that we use instinctually. Say, for example, like a yawn. Like what's happening when you're yawning? Typically, when a person yawns, what is that an indicator of?
Well, that they need more energy, right?
Well, you're tired, right? I mean, it's always the implication that you're tired. Now, basically what's happening is that instinctually your body is changing your breath pattern. That the breath pattern of a yawn is a relatively quick inhalation with a slow exhalation. And so anytime you want to increase the energy levels in your body, you can work with breath patterns that you would say, for example, inhale relatively quickly and exhale slowly. And then another breath pattern that we use instinctually would be the sigh. And again, like, what is it that we're doing when we're sighing?
Well, you're trying to expel energy, right? You're trying to lower the energy. You have too much energy in your body.
Right. The energy has become accumulated in the body, and you're trying to dissipate that energy from the body. And the breath pattern of the sigh is a slow inhalation with a rapid exhalation. So again, anytime you wanted to affect a relaxation response, then you would adjust your breath pattern to correspond with the workings of the sigh. So it would be a slow inhalation with a rapid exhalation. And those are just some of the real fundamental things that you can learn to work with as far as pranayama, this relationship between breath and thought. But always keeping in mind that breathing controls your rate of thought, not the content of your thought. And that changing thought images, working with the mind, is where you're going to exponentially increase your return on your efforts.
So if we could learn to be more conscious of what our body needs, say throughout the day, for example, then we could have dramatic effects on our physiology or psychology if we employed these breathing strategies when there was a need to change how we breathe. And then as we change how we breathe, of course, we would also have a thought as we were breathing as well to kind of amplify that effect.
Yeah, the whole key is coordinating your breathing and your thinking. And having the more conscious participation that you have as opposed to unconscious, that the more engaged you are mentally and working your mind. Just kind of like when we were talking about doing an asana class, working the mind in conjunction to a particular position because energy follows mind. That turning your mind to your creativity, your imagination, endless possibilities is where your potential lies. Then creating images of desired states of being. And then, of course, moving the image from endless possibilities back into your reality. That's a big part of how you maximize your return on your efforts with a pranayama exercise, as opposed to just doing breath patterns.
So if I was to, all right, so say for example, I just want to kind of put this in a experiential example for listeners. So if say I'm in a car, and there's traffic patterns, and we know that phrase road rage, right? So what are some strategies that somebody could employ using pranayama and thought to maybe calm those types of feelings that might happen if they're put into a situation where, like I said, something like that could build up. This rage could build up, or not thinking right.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. I grew up in an old saying, traffic is nature's way of saying slow down. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, typically if you're in a big hurry to get somewhere and then all of a sudden the road conditions interferes with your goals and objectives, then we have a tendency to react to that situation. But like you had said, if you can keep your priorities in order, you're stuck in traffic, you're not in a life-threatening situation. So that you now have objectivity. You distance yourself a little bit from it so that you're not responding as if you're in danger. Because typically, I need to get somewhere else is elevated to a position of importance that's out of control, and then, of course, you're responding as if you're in danger. So just to put the clutch in, so to speak, and stop the forward motion, if you are accustomed to using breath as a symbol to validate yourself, then, of course, you check in and you say, the forces that are really important to me are intact. I'm not in danger.
All right, well, we're going to pause. We'll hold that thought to hear a word from our sponsor. So, listeners, we'll be back in a few moments.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate.
If you are looking for a samadhi-based experience, IPD Kriya Yoga has the goods. A complete yoga program that includes the practices and the process. Kriya Yoga Series 1 live classes and videos. Get your arms around the spiritual science of Kriya Yoga.
The intention of why we practice is to embody spirit, to feel connected to the life force.
Kriya Yoga Asana live classes and videos. A cosmically engineered system of exercises to initiate apotheosis. A system of exercises engineered for dining and dancing at the Cosmic Ballroom. Kriya Yoga Series 2 live classes and videos. A practice in open form designed to facilitate positive growth of consciousness. Get your Labyrinth video.
I find the positive side of this is it pulls a lot of things together.
Kriya Yoga Mantra and Meditation. With repetition comes absorption. Pray on prana and become divine.
At the same time, we all have a unique talent and gift to give back to the universe.
Private sessions. The mysteries of the universe have always been handed down verbally from teacher to student. Call or click now and get started. 603-929-0303 or www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste.
Purnamariya Purnameva Vashishate.
Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. So, Swami, it seems to me that regardless of what show we do, what topic that we have in our program, it always seems to come down to thought. It seems to be that's the primary denominator of all of our shows.
Well, think about it. I mean, if it's your number one life-sustaining force, it's the most important thing that you're doing. And if you don't do it right, one of the things that we're always saying is bad habits set up limitations. So if you're not thinking right, then, of course, you've got a bad habit in your number one life-sustaining force. And so the repercussions are enormous. The collateral damage that trickles down from that very basic concept changes who you are. And so it is of the utmost importance.
Now, we say in our asana classes, when we do a standing meditation, and even at the end of our class, when we say, on the inhalation, mentally draw positive energy into your body, call upon the power and abundance of this universe, bring that creative force into your body. So it's this mental control that we have to have, this always being present and understanding that we have the power to draw this energy in. And now it's a matter of how do you bring it into the body? Like, how do you bring it to those trouble spots in the body? I don't know if a lot of people understand what that means when we say, you know, bring that creative force into your body, replenish every cell of your being. You know, what does that look like when I'm doing it?
Yeah, you basically are working your mind. You know, it's like right now you can put awareness in your right foot and have total awareness of what's going on in that right foot. Now, at the exact same time, all right, you can now shift your awareness to what you have in your refrigerator. Right now, while you're rummaging through the refrigerator, you have absolutely no idea what's going on in your right foot. You have no idea what's going on in this room. And then, of course, the last use of the mind is that you can turn your mind to your creativity, your imagination, endless possibilities. So working the mind is really where the power of the practice begins, and understanding how to do that. That turning your mind to your creativity, your imagination, and then creating an image of a desirable state, and then actually bringing that image into awareness, and then bringing it into your physical body, directing that image to a trouble spot. And again, using your breath to help you move that image, working with inhalations and exhalations. Mm-hmm. And that's where pranayama becomes a big part of your asana program.
You know, you talk a lot about imagery and bringing positive, working with positive images and, you know, bringing that into your body and into your mind. So that becomes a very powerful tool, and I think if we all could learn how to do that and do it skillfully, you know, we could probably eliminate a lot of the outside influences that people take to help heal themselves, like the Tylenols, the ibuprofens, or whatever. You know, pick the poison. And I think if we all learned to breathe consciously, you know, be aware of what's going on in the body, bring that creative force in, replenish every cell, you know, then we could actually put the medical profession out of business.
I don't know if you put them out of business, but I think what you'd do is you'd give people back more and more of their own power. And I think that would be really beneficial, because when an individual has the calmness, the confidence, and the clarity that comes with, you know, internal support connected to this life force, this thing called prana, as opposed to drawing from particles, which generates fear and limitation, then you have a completely different individual. And so, not that somebody would be senselessly optimistic or stupid, but like you say, we wouldn't succumb to a lot of the unnecessary fears that we're manipulated with. And we would have a better understanding of how we're creating our reality, and it would put us in a better position of strength if you could actually affect changes consciously and willfully. But without these skills and without an understanding of how things work, we oftentimes feel like a victim. And so I think organizations like the medical community really are there for people that don't really want to take responsibility for their own well-being. You know, that they want to turn it over to someone else. And, you know, there's pros and cons to everything. Everything is physics. You can't ever gain something where you don't lose something. And I'm not saying that learning a pranayama or exercise is for everybody. But if you are that type of person that likes to be more in control of your reality, then it's a great place to start. And working that relationship between, you know, your number one life-sustaining force and your number two life-sustaining force. And then, of course, just like what you had mentioned earlier, this whole concept of thinking right. Just using what you really do need to produce the feeling that you're happy, that you're okay. As fundamental and as basic as that is, it's oftentimes missing. And we're searching and we're looking for something visible and tangible as opposed to this invisible, intangible resource that is unchanging. And so coming back to the goals and objectives of yoga, this whole thing of apotheosis, this process of the human becoming divine, this metamorphosis of an individual into an adult is all part of what I would call a really good pranayama practice.
You know what I think is so interesting is that we talk about skillful use of thought, skillful use of breath, skillful use of water and food and exercise. So you got 2 out of the 5 right there when you practice a pranayama exercise.
Oh yeah, and really, when the more you cross-examine it, you start to see the importance of skillful use of thought, because thinking right becomes a platform. You know, that this whole concept of God's help, you know, using a resource that is actually producing a much better return than if we continue to draw from the outside world.
You know what I think is so encouraging is that this is a skill that anybody can learn how to do. It's not like you have to have a certain physical body type, or it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done in the past. I mean, it doesn't matter. But this is something that anybody can learn how to do at any age. I mean, you can start any time. You don't have to start learning pranayama when you're 8 years old. You can do it. You gain benefits from this when you start right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's also nice to put it all into perspective. I mean, it would be great if we could do this at age 7, our first point of passage. I mean, that whole concept of a Holy Communion, and have the benefit of internal support, so that as I start to grow into my teens, I have the courage to make intelligent decisions, as opposed to me secretly seeking approval in decision making and not knowing what's driving me, because it's all fear-based motivation. And yes, this does offer people solution to a lot of the common problems that we struggle with today, because we aren't able to make the connection.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I just want to make a footnote out there that we do a specific pranayama exercises on Thursday night at our Theory 2 class, and everybody is certainly more than welcome to attend that class at 7 p.m. But I think it's about that time we do have to start closing down our program. So I'd like to invite our listeners to visit the website. You can follow Swami on Pinterest and Twitter, and, of course, there's Facebook. Be sure to visit the website. That address is www.ipdtransform.com. And then once you're there, you can post questions about this show or comments, any ideas you have about future shows. But keep them, comments, questions, curiosities coming, because Swami does enjoy hearing from you. Be sure to tune in next week. I believe we'll be discussing the full moon that will be on the 19th. So that'll be a fun show. And Swami, any final thoughts, comments about our show this week?
Not really, but I would like to invite people to join us in our Theory 2 Pranayama practice. And with that, I'll wish everybody a good day, and namaste. And the other thing is, we will be talking about the moon next week. Okay?
Yeah, I can't wait. That's going to be fun. And for those of you that aren't local, you can also access that Series 2 class via Powwow. You can get through that through the website, too. So just for information for you folks. But thank you for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton, along with Swami Jayananda, signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.